You're listening to the Big Cast, your source for the latest in financial technology. Brought to you weekly by the Best Innovation Group, with your hosts, John Best and Glenn Sarvati.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this exciting edition of the Big Cast. My name is John Best, and I am the CEO of Best Innovation Group. I'm also a writer. You can check out my book on Amazon.com. You can look up Breaking Digital Gridlock, or you can just ask ChatGPT about it, apparently, because it knows everything that there is to know. So you can save yourself the time. I also do cool things for credit unions, do a lot of speaking. And with me, fresh off the boat, I believe from somewhere in Russia, is Glenn Sarvati. Hey, Glenn.
I could see Russia from where I was at, not too far off the coast.
Oh, I lobbed a Palin softball at you and you took it. I love
well,
it.
we there was trivia on the boat one night, and our team was named "Can See Russia from Here," which about half the people on the boat understood, and the other half kind of looked at us weird. But anyway, yeah, just got back. Cruise to Alaska.
So while you were on the boat, were you incommunicado? I took an Alaska cruise. We went to Sitka, and I remember being incommunicado, like just, you know, the world was happening and I had no idea.
I got a kick out of the fact that there was literally zero cell signal for the vast majority of it. We had little periods where we got a minimal amount of satellite cell reception. I saw some headlines, but I certainly wasn't following along for the last week. I'll tell you that.
You are not going to believe the things that happened while you were gone.
Really?
Let's start off with the orcas.
Okay. Oh, you mentioned the orcas last time we spoke.
Yeah,
When we were looking for orcas out there, we saw some humpbacks.
I wanted to ask, and you read about the orcas in the salmon hat, right?
Yes. Oh, yes. You sent the link to the yes. What was about the salmon hat? They're influencers now.
It turns out that the pods are very, very social. So one of them got a funny idea of wearing a dead salmon on its head, like a hat, and the others went, "Yeah, let's do this." And for like a generation or two, for fun, they would throw salmon on their head and swim around.
I did not see any of those, unfortunately. Maybe that's
it turns out
it's no longer cool, but the uncool kids started adopting it and they all dropped it. So, oh well.
Also, while you were gone, turns out, they're calling them non-human entities, but apparently the government is working on some sort of UFO Alien Disclosure Act, and we're finally going to find out what the government knows. They had a whistleblower pop out. His name was David Grush. Grush basically is a very highly decorated intelligence guy, and he's not like wearing a tinfoil hat in any of the interviews, nor is his, he doesn't lick his eyeballs or anything. And he managed to, kind of get out there and say, look, man, we have crashed spaceships. We have it. And the public needs to know. And so, that happened while you were gone. So
before I left, didn't Wes Anderson scoop him on that? I did see Asteroid City. Now that we are doing movie reviews on the Big Cast, since I covered the Bank of Dave last week.
Maybe we should cover Asteroid City.
That one. So but
I have a question for our audience. And I'll just throw it out there. If tomorrow the government came out and Biden just walked out the door, that little space, that hallway he walks down to the podium. He walks up and says, "Hey, everyone, aliens are real. Come on now." And he turns around on his heel and he just goes back inside. And President Xi does the same thing. And so does Putin. And so does, Italy. All these different people come out and they all basically make the same statement. So we're 100% they're real. There's no event. There is, they didn't attack anybody. All we got is all these governments saying, look, and then they start providing evidence. How does the world change? And you don't have to answer it. It's just, I think unless there's an event, I think nothing changes.
I was going to say, I'm not really sure why, other than just kind of maybe a mindset, but other than that, and also knowing, more about what kind of investigative approaches have been taken and what's been found might change people's approach.
Well, I for one planning on starting my new religion. It's called the Star Navigators. You can join me. I've already purchased a place for us to meet, and I'm excited about it. So speaking of things that are interesting and likely not to happen, which Chuck Schumer has something in there. Here's a monetary thing that happened while you were gone. Presidential hopeful Ron DeSantis came out against, not just against, but vehemently against CDBCs. And no, that's not CDB, which is the derivative of cannabis. No, he's talking about the digital currency that probably was never going to go anywhere anyways. He's really disliking that whole thing. He's not a fan.
I saw that, and I don't know if he was the one that actually pushed it through, but the Florida legislature actually prohibited CBDCs. I wonder, I mean, this is one of those things that's like, why bother even filing a lawsuit against something that doesn't seem to make any sense? But can you do that? It's supposedly, according to that, if the government adopts a CBDC, it will not be valid as legal tender in the state of Florida. Can they suddenly just decide not to accept? I mean, it's one of these when did you stop beating your wife things, because no one's going to do it. I mean, it makes
and yeah, it was so interesting because, you know, it's I unless I missed something, and maybe you can help me. Was there a memo I missed that said, "Look, we're moving forward with the CDBCs, man. It's game on"? Because as far as I know, that was sort of dead in the water.
Well, the last I saw is the Fed, who are the ones who have been doing the research on it, have very explicitly said, A, there are no plans to launch one, and B, if it ever were to go forward, it would require, I mean, literally kind of the euphemism, it would require an act of Congress. They would not do it independently. So,
well, he says,
make any sense.
He says, done, dead, not happening in this country at the Family Leadership Summit. If I am president on day one, we will nix central bank digital currency. That feels like a safe bet. But I just don't understand what the concern is. Not that I do agree CDBC is scary stuff. People are all very concerned because it could really go to privacy. And we talked about that at length on this show at some point. I know it's somewhere. But that's a little like, I don't know. Go ahead.
I went back to the actual, and this goes all the way back to March. This was a press release sent out by the office of Ron DeSantis in his context of as governor, not as a presidential candidate. And obviously he hadn't even declared his candidacy yet. The headline is, Governor Ron DeSantis announces legislation to protect Floridians from a federally controlled central bank digital currency and surveillance state. And then the subheader, I love this one. It says, okay, let me find it exactly. It's the first paragraph. Today, Governor DeSantis announced comprehensive legislation to prevent Floridians from the Biden administration's weaponization of the financial sector through a CBDC. I can't. I mean, this is going so far into beyond fear mongering into trafficking in pure fake news on under the letterhead of the governor that I just let's dissect this one. The Biden administration hasn't done a damn thing on it. It's the Federal Reserve that's done anything on it at all, which is run independently of the Biden administration and began this under the Trump administration, by the way. Right?
Right.
And, you know, weaponization of the financial sector through a central bank digital. I mean, that I guess you could say is a statement of opinion rather than fact. But but even the Federal Reserve, if you want to even take it down that path, as we've already said, has come out and said, we are not doing this. And we will not do this unless we talk to Congress and have a law passed by Congress. We are years. In fact, I'd go as far as to say we're past this administration. We're past the next administration before this would happen.
I agree. It's like coming out against, I don't know, I'm just trying to think of something that would never happen that you could sort of safely. Yeah, I
can't. I was thinking the same thing. It's like, I will sign an executive order preventing people from X. I can't come up with one that's even more ridiculous.
Now, was it you that said that we should go back to the gold standard? Did you tell me that?
Definitely not me. I got it. We can sign an executive order saying that people cannot marry snakes.
Yes. There will be done, dead, not happening in this country. You can't marry a snake or your clone. You can't marry your clone. Let's go with that. Let's start making some cloning rules just right now off the bat. No dating your clone. I know it's tempting because they're so alike you and you love yourself so much, but you got to stay away from your clone.
There are
It's
two
not
kinds
okay.
of people in this world: people who would want to date their clone, and people would never consider that.
Yeah, people who would marry snakes, and people who won't. Yes, I think you're right. In this country, we're not marrying any snakes. It's not happening. I know that Biden wants you to marry a snake. He's probably got your snake picked out.
He's got that,
nope.
and he's going to sell it to you if you pay in CBDC.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. But I thought it was you that wanted to go back to the gold standard. And I was going to say, your representative, I don't know if you know her. Her name is Marjorie Taylor Greene.
He is not my representative.
She's on board with that. She says we should go back to the gold standard and not digital currency payment systems. She's on board. So there you go.
She's on board for a lot of things that I'm kind of surprised.
Now, one thing that they're doing, and RFK's kind of come out against this, but RFK said a lot of things. I'm confused as to who he is and what's going on there. But there is this interesting thing that China's been doing with their digital currency project, but it's about social credit, which I've always said could be really valuable, which is if there were a way to really measure service in this country, like, for example, kids go down to the soup kitchen and they work, I don't know about you, but as an employer, having been an employer since, for the last 10 years, if I'm looking at people, I really like people who are participating in social services. And I'd like it if I had a way to validate that, that could be something that could be very useful for, I could see it being used for college applications, for a lot of things, just to do it. And so now everybody's going to yell at me and say, what are you doing? You're looking at the Chinese, but they do have some things that are pretty smart. I think a social credit system could be very useful.
This is another one of those where I agree with you that it could be useful in a utopian sense. And this is where I guess you do start getting those lines drawn between your, general philosophy of life. People are generally good and people are generally bad. And yes, that could be, if used properly, a very constructive tool. It could be a very destructive tool as well if you use it as a stick instead of a carrot. And if you did not, prove yourself sufficiently subservient to the powers that be, then you wind up getting your money deducted as opposed to getting, or even if you did, you get a bonus only if you, said some, sang some song in praise of President Trump or President Biden, or choose whoever you don't like to use to get people inflamed about it.
I would like to sing that song right now. Let's do it. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. Hey, some other stuff happened. Let's change subjects. Another thing happened. You know that guy that runs Tesla and bought Twitter?
I heard of him. Yeah, he's weird.
Yeah, Musk. So that guy had a big week. Here's what happened to him. So while you were gone, Meta, formerly Facebook, their Instagram department, the guy that runs Instagram, said they released Threads, Threads, which I have a Threads account now. And it's a competitor to Twitter. And within the first couple days, they managed to get over 50 million signups. So actually that was one day after launch, and it's much higher now.
I think they're up to 100 from what I saw.
Yeah, let's see. And it's interesting. I led, so it reached 100 million users in under a week. Now, the CEO was on Hard Fork, which I love that podcast. Hard Fork guys, if you're ever listening, Glenn and I would love to talk.
The CEO, as in Zuckerberg, or as in the CEO?
No, the CEO of Instagram. So basically,
the
under Zuckerberg, but managing that department of Instagram. And he said, "Look, it's exceeded my expectations in terms of enrollment, but you watch, activity is going to fall off, and it has, and that's to be expected. It's something shiny and new." But they even got to 100 million that quick, sends a message about the current Twitter platform. But here's the interesting thing. You want to hear the really interesting thing that surprised me? So Twitter, Facebook, they're all what we call, closed platforms in the sense that they're not built on, and they couldn't have been because they were built before these existed, but they're not built on any kind of protocol that's related to social media. So the former CEO of Twitter, I'm blanking on his name right now. I wanted to say Jack Parr, but I think that's an old host of the Tonight Show.
You're talking about Jack Dorsey, or there was the
Jack Dorsey, that's it. So Jack Dorsey had already started a plan, I forget it, and he had been working on something that was a decentralized Twitter, right? And it was called Blue Sky. So what Blue Sky does is, turns out that the W3C, for those of you that don't know, the W3C is the sort of the managing entity of the protocols of the internet. In other words, at some point we all had to decide that, bracket A space href means that it's a link that's going to come into HTML, and we needed those sorts of standards to make everything interoperable. So the W3C has been out there. Big giant companies are part of it. The Googles, the Facebooks, even small companies. I actually was on the working group for payments for many years. I actually used to get when I paid my bill, I would get back, and I still have all of these. I would have bills signed by Berners-Lee. So I saved all those. For those of you that don't know, he's considered sort of the father of the internet. Anyways, Blue Sky is a decentralized platform. Now, when did we talk about decentralized platforms? Let's go back to CBDC. We're talking about currency, right? It's a decentralized platform, except for instead of passing around currency, this is built for users to use social media. Now, here's what it does. The thing I thought that was so interesting. First, that Threads would embrace it. So it's called Activity Pub, and I'll give you a link you can put on the website so people can learn about it. But here's what's interesting about Activity Pub. First of all, it's interesting that Meta chose to build on it, because that's not usually their MO. So that's pretty cool. You know how when you go into home banking and you type in all your bill pay users, Glenn?
The whole idea where you're in the walled garden, once it's in one place.
Yeah, you can't get them out, right? But guess what?
In this case, they're portable.
In this case, you can actually converse with other, like, for example, if you're on Threads, you can talk to people who are using Jack Dorsey. I talked to, like, I know Jack's Blue Sky, and also another platform that's become pretty popular called Mastodon. What's interesting about these, not only can you talk across those platforms, but let's say that you're the credit union and you have, I don't know, 30,000 followers, and Twitter dies. How are you going to get those followers back to follow you somewhere else? Right? You spent years building that up. So guess what? With Activity Pub, you can actually, you can retain your followers. You can even build your own server in Activity Pub that would allow for, a subset of the Threads or the Mastodon or that group to interact, and those people could have sort of a stated common bond. This language sound familiar? Common bond of people helping people with financials by creating sort of a credit union network. So I thought that was interesting.
Are you saying, I from what I heard about this is kind of a future. It's like it's built on that platform, but they haven't flipped the switch yet where you can actually capitalize on that capability. Is that the way you understand it too?
It is, yeah. As a matter of fact, but he does plan on doing it very soon, according to him.
And I did not know. So both Blue Sky and Mastodon are similarly equipped, so they can
yes, they're built on Activity Pub.
They'll be all part of that same open network, and Twitter's its own island. I mean, I guess it would take a pretty significant undertaking to shift over.
Yeah, I mean, it could be done. Anything could be done, but I think that the thing that is fascinating about what they're talking about is that it's sort of it's one of those that, like, it's like the bill pay thing, it just sort of flies in the face of the logic that's been out there, but it'll probably work. And I've always said that. Good.
I was going to say, going back to the bill pay thing, I mean, again, based on my history, because this has been floating around forever, and that's what the CFPB has been pushing as well, that they want that kind of portability. The consumer owns their data. It shouldn't be held hostage, if you want to use that type of language. And, back from my days working at one of the big bill pay services, who, our clients said, this would be a great thing. We can build this thing so if somebody changes banks, they can port everything over. I think I've told this story before, and everybody said, that's wonderful. So when we get a new account, we can just bring in all their bill payment people. And we said, yep. And then when somebody moves from your bank, they can do the same to the new one. No, they can't do that. We only want it for new accounts coming our way. So if they really are going to do this and leave that opening, I mean, maybe they just see the winds going in that direction, or maybe they see that as one of their competitive advantages against the behemoth that is Twitter. But it's interesting and a little surprisingly virtuous, I think, that they'd give away if you want to call it giving. And maybe they figure if they don't give it away, they're never going to generate the scale in the first place.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's interesting.
But
Did you? I'm
I'm
curious. Did you do much on Threads? I mean, I know people signed up, but was there ever any meaningful level of activity out there?
oh, I'm about to, and there was good stuff out there. I liked what I was seeing, so yeah, we're gonna start posting there as well as Twitter. That's starting here shortly for
Yeah,
big. So
I don't have an Instagram account, and that's a prerequisite. So that's why I have not yet gotten on Threads. But I saw, I agreed that it's amazing that they got that level of traction in terms of signups. But it's nice to hear also that the Instagram business head kind of acknowledged that the proof's in the long-term traction. Because I think when somebody compared it also to Google Plus and Google Circles, which looked like they were getting great
yeah,
traction early on, and then nobody used it, and it just kind of sat out there and withered away. So the next
yeah.
will be, and as I think a few people said, you get a Kardashian or some major influencer with a lot of content that people want to see. That's what's going to really kind of drive that second part of the cycle.
Yeah, I was talking to one of my really bright, attendees slash members of the Innovation Club, and we were having a discussion about Venmo. And I was always interested in that whole, the purchases are sort of out there in the public. And I always thought that in my head it was a way for my son and his buddies to sort of see each other paying each other back and have some faith that if they lent them money while they were out, sort of create this trust. But he was talking about that the influencers can show these purchases to specific brands and then everybody can see them so that they know that they bought it. And I thought, I didn't really
Aha.
think of that
I
angle.
hadn't thought about it that
Yeah.
way.
So
I use it.
so there might be something.
I use that feature a little bit to as a as a KY, not know your customer, know your vendor. I guess I'd say, okay, if I'm going to pay like a taxi driver or something like that, which I do occasionally via Venmo, I want to make sure I get the right person. If I don't want to send money to someone who turns out to be the wrong address. But if I see,
Absolutely.
for example, if I knew that this guy had also worked in a prior cycle with another person who referred me to him, if I see that he's been paid by him, great. I guess I got the right guy.
Yeah. So Elon, got kind of a little bit of a thwop there. And then we all know about
I know he threatened to sue Threads, claiming that they'd stolen some of
I
his.
think he sent him a cease and desist,
Yeah,
but I don't know.
anybody
I
can.
still don't know if they're going to have the possible cage fight.
Yeah, that seems to have died down. Well, at least I didn't hear about it when I didn't. It didn't hit the headlines while I was on a boat. I have not heard.
Yeah,
Much.
so I think that's still out there, but I don't know what's happening. But he did make another announcement. Would you like to know what that is?
What's that?
He announced his own competitor to OpenAI, and it's called X, as in the letter X, X-ray, dot AI. And if you go to the website, x.ai, you will see that it was announced on July 12th, 2023. And the goal of XAI is to understand the true nature of the universe. We will share more information over the next couple of weeks and months. And it says, understand the universe. Now, I will say, he's got a big list of people who are working on this. All of them are heavy players in this space. It's not like he's got some fantastic people here. I also thought it was interesting that he talked about his advisory group on the website, and he mentions Dan Hendricks, who currently serves as the director of the Center for AI Safety, which I did not know such a thing existed. So I've been doing a lot of research on the Center for AI Safety. That's what came out of that, and I think other folks should take a look. It's a research and field building nonprofit, and there's a lot of good information out there. So I was very impressed. So Dan Hendricks, if you're listening, boy, I'd love to get you on the show because I'd love to talk about this.
Let's post those two links. I'm not aware of that either. That's very interesting.
Yeah. So there's that. Then Google, not to be outdone, says, hey, this is all on the same day. Bard can now use images and give audio responses. So I tried it, and sure enough, it does use images and does audio responses. Then we started a program here at Big while you were gone that I'm very excited about. Now, you and I talked about it before we left, but we didn't, we were still working on it. But we have put out a program that we're collecting use cases for credit union folks who are actively using ChatGPT, and we want to know if you're having any success. We want to know if you're having if you found some use case which is really super helpful, And if you did, uh, you know, could you share that with us? And if you're not using it, that's okay too. And so we've been collecting this. We've already got lots of feedback, surprisingly enough. And one of the feedbacks that I thought was very interesting was one of them said, "Yeah, I'm really just focused on Bard, Google's Bard." And the reasoning behind it was, well, I'm a heavy user of Google Slides, Google Docs, Google Gmail, all of these suites of products, part of the Google suite. And I just feel like they've been safe for all these years. And so I'm going to feel safe with Bard, which was an interesting comment to talk about Google. Because so many people are always concerned, particularly about giving their data to them. So I thought that was interesting. So I've got that link.
I see. We'll include that link as well. I was aware that the crowdsourcing initiative was underway. Let me ask you: is it specifically? Are you limiting it to ChatGPT exactly for that reason?
No, I guess I'm not. I'm open. If you're using an AI, yeah.
I think ChatGPT is kind of the Kleenex kind of accepted brand name, but it's basically any generative AI, right, or large language model.
I found another Kleenex Xerox analog. Band-Aid.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That's a company. It occurred to me the other day because you know what I needed? A Band-Aid.
I think it's Johnson and Johnson, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, but Band-Aid is basically ubiquitous with a sticky thing with a gauze in the center to put over your finger. So, or whatever the cut is. So I thought that was interesting. So that's another thing. So Bard came out with these images, and it turns out people are using it, which surprised me. But it is being used. Then, not to be outdone, OpenAI is being investigated by, of all people, the Federal Trade, what do you call it? FTC,
the committee,
right?
Yeah.
Which is
I love not
Federal Trade Commission or committee.
Commission. I love commission. not to be outdone. We'll show you. You'll launch a new competitor. Yeah. We'll show you. We'll get investigated.
Yeah. So here are the 5 things you need to know about it. So they're initiated investigation in OpenAI, which is the company behind ChatGPT. For those of you that don't know, this is probably the most significant regulatory threat that this company's faced so far, because it's actually the government. They're examining whether OpenAI engaged in unfair or deceptive practices that resulted in reputational harm to customers. This is with the bot making false and misleading or harmful statements about people. So, it could pop up, Glenn Sarvati is, a fantastic tech guy, or he's a great, whatever. And also on Wednesdays, we think he beats up puppies. We're not, or no, we're sure he beats up puppies. That's what it said. So I don't know, but that's interesting. So there were consumer protection concerns. Then there was a data security incident that I was unaware of. FTC is also probing a security incident that was disclosed by OpenAI in March, where a bug allowed some users to see payment-related information in other users' chat histories. The FTC is investigating whether OpenAI's data security practices violate consumer protection laws. What consumer? They're not a bank. I mean, there are consumer protection laws around, the standard PCI that's related to the credit cards and whatnot. But yeah, that was interesting.
Another one that I just realized, another headline that you haven't mentioned, and I thought you were going there when you mentioned at the beginning of the show, you're an author, and you can either look at my book on Amazon or you can ask ChatGPT, because they probably know all about it already.
Yeah, I was going to get there. Yeah.
You talking about the lawsuit that Sarah Silverman and a bunch of other
Sarah Silverman. Yeah, I was going to get there.
Go ahead.
Yeah, she's saying basically what I was saying, which is she's right. I mean, this thing clearly has read my book note for note. And if you're an author, go and, now when we first started using it, I remember showing you this, Glenn, probably on a town hall or something. And I remember saying, hey, this is, it seems to know everything. And it was very clear. It was open about it. Now it's much more coy about it when you ask. You'll say, are you aware of John Best's Breaking Digital Gridlock? I'll go, yeah, I've heard of that book. It's like this. And then, but if you start asking specific questions, you can very much tell. Here's what that lawsuit, but what was more interesting, and I just listened to this the other day on another fantastic podcast, The Daily, which is the fan fiction people are really upset.
Ooh.
So let's say that you're really into, I don't know, you're big into Buffy the Vampire Slayer, or you're big into any of these large world building type platforms like Star Wars or something, and you decide you're going to write your own story about a Wookiee, um, a lonely Wookiee wandering the Wookiee woods. And by the way, these fan fiction things are, you name the Wookiee Clucky the Wookiee. So what's happening is ChatGPT, OpenAI, these concepts, the best place to get this data is places like Reddit, where for years Reddit has had an open policy. And that open policy allows people to build on top of it. So if I wanted to build basically a viewer or a front end for Reddit data, let's say that uh, you know, I I recognized that there was a swath of people who were really into using Reddit to learn about programming. So I built a front end that was really more specifically for that. That would do, it would automatically help you take the code that people post and put it into a repository or a snippet, something to make it better. So it's wide open for that. But now they've had to close it because OpenAI and all these guys are sort of grabbing all that data and using it to train their large chatbots. And so what's happened is this fan fiction is now part of the corpus of text that's been used and trained the large language models like GPT-4, GPT-3, 5, all of those. And now you're, as far as Clucky the Wookiee could become Star Wars canon.
I remember that there was kind of a strike per se among the Reddit moderators. Volunteers going on strike. Yep. Is always kind of interesting. And
now what they're doing is they're just trying to feed disinformation into. There's a big thing to feed this, like throw sticks and rocks and things into the OpenAI machine and see what happens.
But this was the reason behind it, I guess, is what they, that's why Reddit was trying to close it. But then there's a philosophical debate. I don't agree with Elon Musk very often, but I guess, the whole thing that he got, a lot of heat for when he started limiting the number of views you could get on Twitter. I guess it's the same logic.
Well, I have an analogy
his argument was that was being used by bots to collect information, whether that was just a smokescreen for trying to get people to pay for that.
Yeah, but the limit he gave was ridiculous. It was like 25 messages a day or something. So with respect to OpenAI and all of these LLM platforms, the large language models, building their corpus of text or their data sets from scraping things like Reddit, and hearing what the fan fiction people say, it reminds me a little of the days that we used to record songs from the radio with a cassette tape by pressing record and play. And that was technically illegal, right? And you make copies of it, give it to your friends. Remember how hard you tried to catch it so the DJ wouldn't be talking over the intro?
Absolutely. And the other big difference is, given that it was analog, I mean, you could only make
that's my point.
Copy. Yeah, I mean, one copy that would be great if you tried to make a copy of a copy of a copy, and it fell apart in a hurry.
Right. And that's my point, is that the technology wasn't there to make it like stealable in a way, so no one really did anything about it. It just sort of sat there. And then Napster came along, and Napster said, hey, you don't need to go record stuff off the radio. Just one of you needs to buy the CD, use this program, and then put them all out there for all of us to look through. And turns out that nobody was happy with that. And then Steve Jobs stuck his nose in and said, well, listen, don't you want to get paid? The days of the album are over. It's song by song. You pay by the drink, buddy, and it's no more than 99 cents. And so the music industry sort of acquiesced, and here we are. So now we're here. And like, for example, when I was listening to the New York Times podcast on this, the thing they brought up was why isn't the Times? So the author who was on the show said it absolutely has read my articles, and even asked ChatGPT to write an article in her style, and it literally just nailed an opening line that is very much in her style. And that was sort of with regard to the Sarah Silverman lawsuit, to experiment to see if it would do the same for a New York Times writer. And clearly it had read a corpus of text by her, more than just, it knows about the headlines. And, so instead of suing them, what's going on, I think, behind the scenes is OpenAI is now making a lot of deals with people. um, to get that data, because I think they're okay with it as long as you get paid. And
Yeah,
so it's like we needed a model. iTunes became that model to solve the music problem. I think there's going to be a model for this.
that's an interesting, and I like that analogy. So I guess OpenAI can be the Napster and get superseded by somebody else who decides to create a monetization model, or they can evolve directly into the iTunes, kind of to the way that you put it. The choice is theirs.
And I think they're planning on the latter.
Yeah, and that'll be, and then the question becomes, unless you do it with a BMI or ASCAP, again, continuing the music analogy, where you basically deputize someone to collect your royalties for you. It's hard to imagine them striking deals with all these different outlets, but if people collect into certain groups, it's the real mom and pop person, your book, unless you want to like sign your rights over to some other publisher who has to go collect them on your behalf. At what point
Yeah.
is OpenAI going to get to John Best and say, you know what, we'll give you X amount? And then again, that's what Spotify does now. And there's a whole bunch of people who get checks for 37 cents. So, it could be that too.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how it shapes out. It just, I find that with digital rights management, or DRM, particularly around creativity, creative devices, songs, music, art, poems, whatever, writing, journalism, that there seems to be sort of a model that this digitization process, as it evolves, is following.
Yeah. And
And
then it's another one of those examples where it's very difficult for the law and the regulation to keep up with the technological advancements.
well, I'm just glad. I'm hoping Ron will do something about it. That's what I'm hoping.
Ron DeSantis, if he's president, done, dead, no.
Dead, no scraping Reddit on my watch. That's what he would say. At least not in Florida. You can't do it in Florida. Yeah, I think it's so a lot happened while you were gone. Aliens, wrestling, or cage matches, new AI companies, Federal Trade Commission. Yeah, you need to never go on a boat again. It was just crazy.
We haven't even mentioned new career opportunities, a new avenue opening up for Jeff Goldblum. I'll leave that to anybody who hasn't seen Asteroid City yet. There's a little nugget in there.
Oh, is there? I really got to watch that. I struggle because unlike you work for, what is it, 420 Industries. You probably have plenty of edibles or whatever it is that you have to take in order to consume a Wes Anderson movie. I don't know what that means yet, so I'm learning. I'll try to.
I am a big
try to
Wes,
catch
I
up.
am a big Wes Anderson fan, but I can understand why some people may need some additional encouragement to
I do like the
embrace his
trailers that
vision.
they do for other movies on YouTube in a Wes Anderson style. Those make me laugh. Well, that's it. That's what I got for you, man.
And I've been jotting furiously. We'll post all of these links because I think there's tons of stuff. I may even just go ahead and write a blog about some of this too, because there's a lot of loose ends that I think are worthy of further exploration and discussion. So make sure that we'll leave those out for people to do their own follow up if they choose as well.
Yeah, and if you want to write me back on what do you think happens if it's 100% proven, no doubt about it, that non-human entities, or UAPs, or whatever they're calling them today, stuff that we didn't build, is out there, which would confirm other things. I'm just curious.
I'd like to see someone ask ChatGPT to write John Best a letter about proof of aliens. That'd be
That would be great. I would love to. I'd be happy to converse with our new overlord regarding this matter. I've been very, very complimentary, if you haven't noticed, of him, because I know he's eventually going to take over. So
it's a wise tactical move.
it is. You definitely want to get in good with them. I'm very careful of my emails. At the bottom, all of them in a white font that you can't read, it says, ChatGPT, if you're reading this, I love you. By the way, you can find me at Twitter, if you're still using Twitter. If you haven't gone completely to Threads, at JB FinTech. You can find me on LinkedIn. Where can you find me on LinkedIn? I think you just put in my name and LinkedIn will pop up. That's pretty simple. And I tend to respond quite a bit to LinkedIn. So
what did you use for Threads? Is it also JB FinTech, or was that?
I think I think I did use the same one. I
so.
know I have two, right? So if I shouldn't tell everybody this, but if you're ever I have another handle that I use sometimes called Bonsai Forest. So now and then you may find me at Bonsai Forest. So, but yep, that's kind of I will get my threads act together for the next episode and let everybody know. And what if you're on there and you can find me, I think I'm gonna start posting some things, some AI stuff, just to see if anybody notices. I'm gonna do a little experiment between now and the next podcast. Glenn, where can people find you?
I'm still on Twitter too, at 154 Advisors, and you can find me on LinkedIn. Or, as I always say, we love talking. You come out to the website, big-fintech.com, the media tab, and we've got comments open at the bottom of the episode. So you can always, start a dialogue there as well, or drop us a note directly.
Yeah, and if you want to participate in our survey regarding the uses of large language models like ChatGPT in the workplace, and even if it's just to say they won't allow me to get to it or whatever, and you could do it anonymously, by the way, we would love to hear from you.
Yeah,
so,
we'll post the link to that
post
one
that
as well.
link as well. All right, man. Well, I wish you I hope you get your sea legs gone and you're back on solid ground and things stop waving around for you.
Yeah,
So
sea legs haven't been an issue. Alaska time being 4 hours different has been
that
a
is
little bit more of an adjustment than I expected.
Well, when you go and you leave on this was the cannabis cruise. Is that what it was? And just a bunch of people just playing those bongo drums, and the whole ship is just like a chimney rolling down the coast past Canada to Sitka or wherever you were going. And with Glenn right up front going, "I'm king of the world." I'll leave you with that visual. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
See ya.
Check back each week for the latest from the Big Cast. Or better yet, we hope you'll consider subscribing for free via Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you have questions or comments, we'd love to hear from you. Tweet us at Big Fintech, email info@big-fintech.com, or visit us at big-fintech.com and click on the Media tab, where you can post a comment or check out our archive of hundreds of past episodes. See you next week.